I was like, the moment you said that, I'm like, I know exactly what you mean, but maybe I think I understand why normal people don't like this.
What, are you saying that we have incomprehensible jargon?
Not at all. Not at all. Jesus Christ. Okay.
You should see Renee when I say, like, I start talking 40K and she'll recognize what I'm talking about. And she's like, God damn it. She gets so mad when it starts intersecting into the rest of life. Welcome, Preferred Enemies, the Warhammer 40K podcast that's looking forward to the future. I'm your host, Rob.
Kevin.
And Richard.
And yes, today's episode is going to be almost entirely about the previews from Adepticon, because there's actually quite a bit of 40K stuff there to look at and unpack. And you'll notice we don't have Dennis today. Dennis is out celebrating his brother's birthday. He's out of town, so we will carry on without him. We will get his opinions on at least one of these pieces next episode, because there's one part near the end I think he's really going to have a lot to want to talk about. But before we can get into those previews from Adepticon, we have something a little bit even more recent and possibly more pressing for the entire gaming industry across the board. And that is the tariffs that were announced this week by the United States government. And I hate them for making me need to talk about things that are adjacent to politics in my gaming podcast, but here we are. If you are unaware, and if you are under a rock, you should probably get out from under it. Basically, the government announced tariffs across the board. The United States is levying tariffs of no less than 10% against every country on the planet. Editor Rob here. When we were recording this, we talked about the origin of the tariff amounts and the different amounts that were placed on different countries. And of course, in the week since that's happened, the tariff levels all got changed, and now all countries are like at 10%, except for China, which is 145%. So while that section is no longer applicable, the fact that the UK still has 10% tariffs and China's tariffs are even way higher than when we recorded this episode still makes the amounts that we discussed relevant. And again, with printing in China, even more so. Again, a lot of these are cases where we buy more goods from them because they manufacture the goods we have. And a lot of that is because a lot of those goods are no longer manufactured in the United States. Now, we can have a discussion about the proper path to spur domestic manufacturing. Yeah. And I think that's a conversation worth having, because I would say, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, the idea that we've lost manufacturing jobs in the United States, and there's a lot of stuff has been shipped overseas. Obviously, there's a lot of communities that have suffered from that, and that is a conversation that's worth having. But it needs to be a conversation, not just this stupid fait accompli Band-Aid, like rip off a Band-Aid and do the worst possible patch-up job.
We saw from COVID how impactful like disruptions to global trade are. You know, just the fact that like we had to like shut down harbors and couldn't do imports and exports for a while. We saw like the years-long impact to global trade. You know, kinks in supply chains, everything got more expensive, everything was delayed, it was hard to get anything just because of like a simple shutdown. Not doubling the cost of things, just some shutdowns. Anybody who thinks that like these tariffs are going to cause us to overnight spin up $1 trillion manufacturing empire in the United States is wrong. Like, at minimum, that's going to take a decade. It's not something that we're going to do overnight. Like I don't know. It just.
Well, and the government has already gone from saying we're going to do the overnight job market's going to jump up to now it's like, oh, it's going to take a few years before this works. And it's like, yeah, and you're even saying 2 years and it's not great. And again, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, this is like, you don't do this until you have the manufacturing in place. You don't do it beforehand, especially because the market then immediately responded. Anybody who's been watching stock news knows that like the market responded by shedding like trillions of dollars of value, which now that means there's trillions of dollars less money to invest in any new manufacturing.
Let's use Games Workshop as an example. Like trying to like steer it back into the 40K conversation.
There we go.
You slapped reciprocal tariffs on Great Britain. So anything that gets manufactured in Great Britain and shipped to the States now has this extra, I don't remember what the number is.
Theirs is 10%. There's
10%. Okay. So an extra 10% added to it. So right off the top, everything goes up by 10%. Okay. Games Workshop decides, you know what? It's not worth it. Let's build a manufacturing plant in the United States to get around these tariffs so that they're manufactured in the States. We can sell them locally, avoid this tariff. How many times have we talked about that it takes GW years to spin up a new factory, to buy the molds, to train up the workers, to get the equipment, to buy land, to build the building, all of those things. So that's going to take whatever time that takes. Then it takes all the time to like get the equipment. And where does that equipment come from? Well, that equipment comes from Great Britain because like that's where they have all the stuff now. So that gets taxed when it comes over through these tariffs. So you're putting these extra blocks by doing this now. You're putting these extra blocks into having these companies invest in the United States because everything they have to bring over also gets tariffed. And then, and GW will take them several years to spin up a plant. Now imagine every other manufacturing company in the world trying to do that same thing. It's going to drive costs up. It's going to drive land prices up. It's going to like shrink the market for this equipment. Like, it's bad. It's just bad.
And also, let's consider GW's miniatures are only one facet of their company because their codexes, one of the piece that we have often complained about being
GW digital distribution. Distribution. Cut around all of this.
GW does their printing in China.
Yeah.
So now they have to look at, do they ship, like when the books are printed, do they allocate some shipments directly to the United States, which is now going to incur a 54% tariff, meaning that $60 codex is going to be pushing 100. Yeah. Assuming that they pass the cost on completely on to the customer. I don't know what the margins on their codexes are. Maybe they can cut it down to like 85 or 90, but you're still talking a noticeable price bump.
And we've learned that like companies don't eat costs. They pass that cost on. And honestly, usually what they'll do is, cost went up by 10%. We'll increase prices by 20 because profit. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so they've got that option. They can send it directly to the U.S. and pay huge tariffs, or they can re-import it back to the UK and then ship it to the United States, which is going to delay the line.
Delays the line and it incurs extra costs because you're shipping it. You're doubling the shipping costs. Yep. And whatever tariffs or trade agreements there are between China and the UK, you have to pay. So it's bad. Like, it's a bad situation, like, for Games Workshop. But Games Workshop is in a better position than a lot of other games industry companies to be able to absorb this. This is going to decimate the tabletop industry, like, as a whole. Any other now in the miniature space, things like Trench Crusade, some of these other newer companies have kind of done digital distribution, and I think that's going to save them because Trench Crusade doesn't really sell models, they sell STLs. Now, they do print and sell some of those, but they can get by, I think, just selling the STL files to people. They do digital rules distribution, so they don't have to worry about shipping books and things like that. So they should be able to kind of circumvent a lot of this, or like not be as impacted by this. But other companies like Hasbro and Dungeons and Dragons, or any of the other, small indie press books that are printing books and shipping them, their cost just doubled. Like, yeah, for every book. And Hasbro was already on the fence about, what they were doing with D&D anyway. If all of the prices just doubled and their sales crater because they're Hasbro, yeah, like maybe they mothball D&D and they stop doing as many releases. Or other small companies, all these companies that do Kickstarters, like Shadow Dark is doing their Western Reaches Kickstarter right now. They're making millions of dollars like on Kickstarter to get all this stuff there. But if the costs are now double, that impacts their bottom line. And that's I think the company that does Shadow Dark, I think it's a 2-person company. Like, it's tiny, and like, hey, all of a sudden our costs just doubled. That could be the end for a company like that. Right. And you're going to see a lot of that stuff in the tabletop space.
Yeah,
board games are going to get more expensive. But all these books, it's going to be really bad.
Yeah, there's a good article on Polygon. Tabletop industry in full panic as tariffs are poised to erase decades of growth. And, it talks about how much like a lot of the production is from China, how there's a lot of smaller developers that just can't eat the cost. Like there's a lot of like, effectively mom and pop gaming companies out there where it's like a few people with, a game idea and a dream, and they've managed to like kickstart funds and get something going. And they may have to there's a couple that have already said they had to cancel print runs of some of their games because already. So the other thing that is going to get hit by this is game stores. You've got a couple things going on. You've got the wholesale cost of all their games are likely to go up. Of a lot of their products are likely to go up, which means their margins just got that much tighter. And then on top of that, because we are looking at costs going up, not just on gaming stuff, and I've seen the argument made of, you don't like stuff like, new electronics and things like that. They're luxuries. You don't need them. It will be, but you want them. You don't need them. And that is true. That is true. But everything like essentials are going to go up in cost as well, because again, we get a lot of those, imported. And so everyone's going to have a tighter budget to work with. And what's the first thing that does get cut is luxuries, fun items. And that will directly impact gaming stores. And we've always been a big believer in, pay where you play. Like if you go to a store and you play there, you should spend money there. And they are going to need that more than ever. And bringing it back to 40K, how many? This only affects the U.S. So like your stores in the EU and in Australia and you're all fine. You're all fine. Although this still can impact you depending on what you buy and where you buy it from and what happens to, again, supply chains and such. But in the United States, there's a lot of independent retailers who offer discounts on GW products. It's not unusual to see like a 10 or 15% discount. A lot of stores offer that. They're not going to be able to because that 10% just went away. So right now it is looking like it's going to be an even tighter time. And we have spoken many times about how, other games, other manufacturers have starter products that come in at a decent price point, better than GW has. We said like 100, 150 is a really good starting point for like being able to get 2 players into a recognizable supported form of the game. And even that is now looking at risk for a lot of companies. I know Catalyst, who makes BattleTech, like even before this hit, there were some initial tariffs that were floated, and they're like, yeah, we're going to have to re-examine our costs. And they're like number 2 now in models sold, like from the Gamma convention, like earlier this year or I think it was early this year, saying basically like Q4 of 2024, BattleTech was second only to 40K. That's huge. And one of the reasons they're able to do that is because you can buy a box of 4 BattleTech minis, which is a lance, which is like a standard, like that's how much you can run in a game of standard of like classic BattleTech, or you can like get 2 or 3 of them for Alpha Strike. But still, it's like a box like that is like $20 to $25, maybe 30 depending on what's in there. And they may have to look at like, those boxes are $50 now, and that's because all their stuff's manufactured in China. And, again, the whole point of, as we said, well, why don't they just move the costs here? There was a really good post by the CEO of Steve Jackson Games, Meredith Placco. And in fact, the post was so popular, it tanked their website. Like their website crashed. And so I just want to read this. Some people ask, why not manufacture in the U.S.? I wish we could, but the infrastructure to support full-scale board game production, specialty dice making, die cutting, custom plastic and wood components doesn't meaningfully exist here yet. I've gotten quotes. I've talked to factories. Even when the willingness is there, the equipment, labor, and timelines simply aren't. Yeah. So, as you pointed out, like even if GW decides we're going to spin up a U.S. factory because we make enough of our money in the U.S., it's worth it, assuming that it is worth it cost-wise, it will take years to counteract this. So, and again, we don't know what the future brings. They could peel this back tomorrow.
Right.
It's that kind of situation where it's like, this could just get rescinded and redone tomorrow. We don't know, but at least all the statements so far is that this is the floor, not the ceiling. This is not open to negotiation. And the China situation is going to get really interesting because they issued retaliatory tariffs of the same amount across the board, which theoretically could trigger more retaliation. So I was looking through for example, I thought, okay, well, Cyberpunk Red Combat Zone, all their models are in COCasts. There are COCast facilities like here in the US. Looked at the box, made in China. Checked my copy of Marvel Crisis Protocol, the first core set, made in China. Like, there's so many companies because that's where the manufacturing is. So, so I guess bring it all home. Look for your hobby dollars. What few hobby dollars you may have left, depending on how much costs of other things go up. And again, this is for our American listeners only, although we'll see what happens worldwide. Yeah. But for our American listeners, your hobby dollars are very likely to get very scarce soon, and they will not go nearly as far. And so, this is a moment where GW could step up, if GW wanted to be like the closest thing to the gaming hero right now, they could step up and say, all right, we're switching to, or we're opening up a digital rules distribution option. Like, we're gonna sell codexes and books for like $20, $30 digitally, or even just like, we're gonna keep it. It would suck if they kept it the original like $60 cost, but at least it would be digital and not theoretically not subject to tariff.
Right.
So like they could step up and do that. If they lowered the cost of the digital versions, that would be even better. I don't know if they will. I don't know if they're going to do anything. They may be looking at this and say, UK company, not our problem. We've got plenty of customers elsewhere. So, don't know. And that makes it really hard to be super excited about some of the previews, knowing how much they may or may not cost and what the affordability is going to be. At the same time, I am very excited about some of the releases.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
From Adepticon. So now that we've got the "this is crap and I'm sad" portion of the show out of the way, let's get to the "but I'm also excited and I want to talk about cool stuff." So, because Adepticon, I think, the last preview they did from LVO was good. The Adepticon preview, I think, was better. And not just in the amount of content, but also in how it was delivered. I liked the fact that they were actually live streaming questions, and it felt like that nice organic style. And again, it's scripted. A lot of it is going to be scripted, a lot of the information they have ahead of time, but it felt good. It felt like one of the older style reveals. So I really did appreciate that.
I think it helps that it was 2 hours closer too, so it was a little bit easier to get.
Oh yeah,
the guys online and doing it live at 11 p.m. England time rather than 1 a.m. or whatever it would have been for the LVO reveals.
Right. But I don't want to start with 40K. I want to start with Old World. And, like at first they're like, okay, so we're going to reveal Wood Elves and Beastmen. And we knew, like, no secret, those were coming.
Yeah.
And yeah, they look good. It's nice to see Beastmen back on the table after they got ignominiously dumped from Age of Sigmar. And most of their models still look pretty decent. A couple of them, you can tell the older, like which ones are the older ones. The Wood Elves, I think, suffer more. They have much older models.
Yes.
In many cases.
Yeah.
But, for the most part, like the Beastmen look good. The Wood Elves, fortunately, a lot of their like line troops got redone in plastic before Fantasy went kaput. But their returning medals look rough in a couple of spots, but
they are definitely of an era.
They are of an era. And I was like, that's nice, but I'm like, I'm still probably like, if I get into Old World, I'm looking at Warriors of Chaos because you can build a 2,000 point army out of that box, and I'm ready to go once I've got a little bit more room in my budget. Ha 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 ha. And
you funny,
but yeah, me very funny. But then they're like, oh yeah, but that's not the real big reveal for Old World, and that was Grand Cathay. And now we knew Grand Cathay was coming from like the last roadmap. They like showed it like an image that's like, oh, this is definitely Grand Cathay. But I think they blew past everybody's expectations.
When Total War 3 came out, I remember like seeing the launch reveal for Cathay and going like, holy crap, if they do half of this stuff in the Old World in a game, it's going to look amazing. I think they hit it out of the park. Like I think I mean these models look like what was in the game. It's so good.
Oh yeah. And I watched a video yesterday from a YouTuber going by RoeTaKa Clothing, and she does like reviews of like how like historical clothing and armor and such is presented in fiction, and kind of like does analysis on it. And she did that for the Grand Cathay reveal, and also she's Chinese, so she's got like the cultural background, and I'd say somebody who's very qualified to speak on it. And her video basically goes, there are a few things that she has some quibbles with. You can see where, it's kind of hard to not bring over European tropes when you're a European company developing European fantasy products. But overall, she was very pleased with like the elements they brought into it. And she like did comparisons with like classic Chinese art and weaponry and like how things are portrayed on like statues and paintings. So yeah, the models are done with a very legit Chinese style. And oh my god, the models are absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. They hit it out of the park with these. Like and it really shows like thus far, as much as I like the Old World, and I think, I'm excited to get back into it. I'm excited that it's available again. Everything that's been released or re-released up to this point has definitely been at least like a decade old. The High Elves got a pretty good range refresh in like 2009, and that's the newest. Tomb Kings, the skeletons are from, 30 years ago. Beasts of Chaos, or Warriors of Chaos have a lot of old stuff. Beastmen have a lot of old stuff. Seeing what a brand new army what they can do for the Old World in new plastic with these new design ideas is just like, this army is going to look 1,000 times better on the table than any other Old World army. Like they are just so, you can definitely see how much the process has improved, in the last 20 years on these models. And it's breathtaking.
But yeah, it's like you look at the models, they are relatively dynamic, yet they still rank up nicely, which is very important for Old World. Like the horse, especially like the horses, the Jade Lancers look phenomenal. The Jade Warriors, their basic infantry look really solid. And also, props to the sculpting team. The faces are done well. The faces look appropriately Asian. Like they did a really, really good job on these. The cannons, like I've already seen 40K players saying like, I want these for my field artillery.
Yeah. Yeah, because they just look cool. Like, they're so detailed. The models look great. They were talking in the preview stream that they've got, everyone comes with 10 male, 10 female heads, lots of options, like everything that you would expect in, a modern 40K or a modern Age of Sigmar kit. You're going to get all those options here. But yeah, they're still going to rank up really nicely. Like, I don't know. I knew this was coming, and I kind of knew that we were going to get Cathay at some point. This surpassed all of my expectations, and we haven't even gotten to the cool stuff yet.
Yeah, and then they get into some of the characters, like the Lord on the Longma, which is basically Dragon Horse.
I am forever going to read that as Ligma. I don't know why, but anyway.
Because you are 12.
Because I am 12, yes.
Yes. Like the Gate Masters, where you've got a guy on horse, and then you've got a banner carrier. They look fantastic. The Sky Lantern. Oh my God, the Sky Lanterns.
Yeah. The Sky Lanterns are awesome looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the characters on the Sky Lantern, the one I see brought up most often is there's this gal who's holding 2 bombs and has a fuse that she's holding in her teeth. And I've seen so many people saying yeah, she's just living her best life. She's on this Sky Lantern carrying bombs where there are other bombs. There's no fire discipline in this army, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's amazing.
The Sentinels, the giant statues.
Those are so cool looking.
Those are fantastic.
And those are exactly almost exactly ripped from the game. And how they're designed, they're so good. I cannot overstate how cool it is.
Oh yeah,
that this stuff got translated so 1-to-1 from the game. And remember, this is an army that prior to Total War 3 coming out, 3 years ago, had never been seen in plastic, had never had official artwork. The fact that they designed from whole cloth an army, an aesthetic, and these models in a couple of years is amazing.
Yeah. And then you've got Miao Ying, the Storm Dragon, their named character who transforms. The model looks phenomenal, both dragon and human form. And also a couple things they pointed out. First of all, this is all plastic for a line that a lot of times puts their special characters into resin because they're kind of the specialty game branch of Games Workshop. This is all plastic. This is all modern tooled plastic. The other thing is, when I saw this, I remember seeing the banners on the Jade Warriors and being oh God, their freehand game is on point, because those banners with the dragon faces and everything just look phenomenal. The banner that the Gate Master is carrying is just amazing. Turns out those are decals. Thank God.
Yeah.
Because I'm not gonna lie. If I have the funds to do it when this army drops, I'm I will shelve my Warriors of Chaos plan. I want this army. Well, I want this so badly.
The other thing that they mentioned that I think is maybe hints at the fact that they're learning. I don't know. They've always done rules distribution a little bit different for the old world. But Arcane Journal, Armies of Grand Cathay, is going to contain everything in one book for this army. That's it. You need to buy this book. And if it's the Grand Army book, the Arcane Journals for the other ones, it'll be a $25-$30 soft paperback.
Yeah.
do more of this, GW. Like, release rules cheaper, all in one place. Like, if you're thinking about getting into the old world, I think this is absolutely where you want to start. These models all look fantastic. It really has me excited for what they're going to do with Kislev. Like, that's the big thing for me. It's like, I love this army, but I'm really now excited for what they're going to end up doing with Kislev.
Right, because we know when they first dropped the knowledge that they were going to do, when they first dropped the information that they were going to do Old World, one of the first things they showed off was the sketches they were doing for like the winged hussars and like bear cavalry and things like that. So if it's anywhere close to this, it'll be phenomenal. But yeah, a 48-page softbound book because this is the one army that so far that is not in those, we've talked about how like you buy your book for your Grand Alliance and that's all the rules you need. And then the Arcane Journals are nice add-ons. They said this is the one case so far where all the rules will be in this rather than just being the add-ons that if you want it, but still a 48-page soft codex. I'm fine with that. I'm totally good with that.
Yeah.
No, this is maybe they've learned. And again, we have pointed out that it seems like in a weird counterintuitive way, Old World seems to be one of the more affordable games to get into. And I don't know how that works, but it does somehow. And like, you can go crazy for it and go huge as you can with any game, but it seems like the point of entry for this game is strangely more reasonable, and I'm glad for it because we're going to need a lot more of that. So
and they've got the they showed what the battalion box is going to be, and assuming this is not, they didn't announce pricing or anything, but assuming this is priced along the same lines as the current battalion boxes, which are about I think 180 to 190, you're getting 50 models. You're getting three troop units. Let's see here. 3 troop units, 2 of the artillery pieces, and 2 Jade Lancers. Like, that's a really solid core of an army for, in one box that you can get for, granted, pending, under $200. Like, that's a great place to start.
Yeah, and then you would just need to buy, like, a character to be a general.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, they'll have like I said, the Shugengen Lord on the Longma, or you probably get the Gate Masters box, because then you get a cavalry leader and a banner carrier, which you want to have for Old World. Yeah, and then the book. So you're probably looking at about 250, 260, but that'll get you a good, solid starting army. And from what I have seen from like battle reports online, Fantasy plays fine at like 1,500 points. It's not like the 2,500 point game that it had to be in past years. It plays okay at smaller point levels, and people are kind of working with that. So, if this is a game that you are looking at getting into, you could do a lot worse than this. This is fantastic. I imagine this is going to disappear off shelves about as quickly as some like the Emperor's Children stuff did from their like web store. Yeah. Like when it hits, I'm gonna have to get up early on that day.
Well, and this is an army, like I said, that has been in the background of Warhammer Fantasy since the early 90s, but has never been like on the table. So there's a huge fan base already for this, and I'm excited. I'm excited for it.
And and I also, again, I'm really happy with how like historically respectfully it was done. It doesn't feel like a weird parody army. It feels like it's done with a sense of cultural sensitivity, which is really good to see.
Yeah, because like the one I was thinking of is looking at like the Jade Lancers. I'm like, because my brain is 40K all the time. I'm like, that would be really cool, like Rough Riders, like to convert them a little bit. Comparing these models and these Jade Lancers to the Attila and Rough Riders, let's just say these feel a lot better.
Yeah. And you can't even say like they're an old sculpt. No, those are new Attila and Rough Riders.
Those are the new ones. Yep. Yep. So GW has not always done the best in that. So it is worth pointing out and giving them credit for having, doing these with a culturally sensitive perspective. So
Yeah. And making them
Good on
look
you.
very badass at the same time. So, all right. But now it's time to switch back to 40K. Let's see. Although, before we get into 40K proper, we do want to take a quick spin over to Kill Team Land, where they announced the next Kill Team box, Kill Team Typhon. And
it's pronounced typhoon. No.
it's pronounced meatball sandwich. Don't be culturally insensitive. And if you recognize that, leave us a comment. Leave us a comment if you get that reference. We've got a new squad of Raveners, all for the Nids, all unique and very brightly painted. The paint scheme is almost psychedelic.
Yeah, very, very standout, like this color scheme. But the new designs of the models actually kind of remind me of actually going backwards a little bit, and they feel like a little bit between what the current kit for the Raveners were and like the even older Raveners, like the Red Terror.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a little bit of that second edition design aesthetic in here, which I kind of like.
And I know they don't mention it, but I'm kind of curious if, like, because there's a Ravener Prime is one of the options they have in here. I would love it if they had like a special head or something, and that you could make him run as, like, give rules as the Red Terror, or maybe the Red Terror is just a generic Prime. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool.
But no, and they've done the thing that they do with like all the Kill Team units, where it's like, okay, so there's the Prime, the Fell Talon, the Tremor Scythe, the Wrecker, the Venom Spitter, the Warrior. So they're all like, you can have a bunch of uniquely equipped Raveners. So it's our first foray into actually having Tyranids in Kill Team, and it's nice to see something that's not just Gene Stealers, or that's not just, oh, look, it's a whole bunch of Gaunts. No, this is a unit that we haven't, like, a new plastic version of a unit, and it looks good. Again, they definitely made decisions with the paint scheme for these sample models. I don't necessarily dislike it. It's just a choice.
Yeah.
And they are going to be running against Oops All Servitors.
I don't hate it.
I don't hate it. Now, I do find it interesting that one of the models, the lead model for this unit, for the Mechanicus, is a reprint from Blackstone Fortress Escalation, because it was the Techno-Archaeologist they added in that expansion, and they've had stats for him in the game before. I think he's legended now, but I guess they might bring him back as a datasheet for Mechanicus. They can pull him out of Legends.
Yeah,
but
I hope so.
But it's a Techno-Archaeologist, a Servitor Underseer, which it's like, check out the big metal brain on Brett. And then a whole bunch of servitors. I think one or two of these may be a reprint as well. I think one of the gun servitors might be a reprint from Blackstone Fortress.
I think it's from the Inquisitorial Agents box.
Yeah.
I think that's where I kind of recognize it, but yeah. I think one of them is, but the other ones are definitely new sculpts.
Yes. So yeah, we've got two gun servitors, one of which has a heavy bolter, one of which is shown with, looks like a massive arc rifle of some sort. And then a breacher servitor, a techno-medic servitor. Yeah, they even pointed out, it's odd to have a medic that it only exists to fix other servitors, but apparently this squad will be away from the rest of the Mechanicus for a while, so they have to keep the fleshy bits of the servitors working.
Makes sense.
An auto proxy servitor, and then a trio of just like close combat servitors with little pinchy claws and flamers.
So I'm actually looking at the Inquisitorial Agents box, and I don't... If it is the same sculpt, it's a different chest piece on that gun servitor. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually a different sculpt.
Yeah, and it might be a different sculpt, or they may have just taken that 3D model and put it on the sprue and like altered it somewhat.
Yeah, because the chest piece, the way like the stuff hooks up, it looks a little bit different, and I don't. Yeah, looking in the
head's
inquisitorial,
different.
looking in the inquisitorial agent's sprue, there's only one chest piece on this, so at least it's probably the same model, but like there are like different pieces to it, which is good because it gives you more variety. So
right,
I'm excited. We've needed new servitors for a while. It's always been a complaint of mine that the old servitor models were ancient. So,
and actually, the more I look at it, the more like they may have used that as like the basis, the Inquisitorial Agents one, but I'm like, the legs are different because the Kill Team one has boots, whereas this one has little robot feet. The hands are different. The one in the new Kill Team has an actual like fully articulated hand, whereas the Agents one has like a gripper claw. So yeah, they may have like used it as a base, and we've seen them do that before, where they'll use you'll see the like similar posing, similar elements, but yeah. So I'm guessing other than the techno-archaeologists, these may actually all be new sculpts, and they look good. It's nice to see a variety of servitors. Servitors have been kind of getting cut from more and more armies. They, like all the Space Marine armies seem to have lost their servitors, and that's fine. They're kind of a weird add-on that people were using in the past to kind of like game the system in some cases. And having them available in the Mechanicus, I'm curious to see what they'll look like unit-wise.
yeah.
And we do know that they will get, like, they're likely to get rules for Mechanicus because we now have rules for the new kill teams from the Blood and Zeal box. We like the Goremongers have a data sheet, and we were trying to figure out, are the Sanctifiers Adeptus Sororitas or are they Imperial Agents? And the answer is yes, they are both. They are almost the same, but not quite.
You know what? I don't hate it. Like, I think there should, like, for stuff like that, there should be overlap. It's going to make it more useful to have units be available in multiple codexes and available for multiple things. It's almost like they should have done that for Chaos too.
Almost. One would think.
But no, like in general, I think it's good that these models, especially models from like a Kill Team release, are available to use in multiple places. I wouldn't be surprised if these servitors, obviously they will be Adeptus Mechanicus, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are options to add these other non-gun servitors into Inquisitorial Agents, or potentially options to add the gun servitors back into certain Space Marine or other Imperial units. So,
right.
I hope that we get some of that stuff back, because I think the reason why a lot of those got pulled back was just because they didn't have the models. Now they have the models, so let's put them back in the game.
And I will point out that the Imperial Agents version are listed as retinue. If a priest or inquisitor has a leader ability, can be attached to a Sisters of Battle squad, they could be joined to this squad instead. So that would allow your like Greyfax or a Ministorum priest or a generic inquisitor to be added to be attached to them. So at least they made sure that the rules work with the codexes, and it's that book always could use more options. So yeah, I don't hate it being Imperial Agents, and I do like that it's in Sisters as well. The rules are not so wildly different that like the units themselves do, like the models themselves have like the same weaponry that does the same thing. So at least that you don't have to keep separate. Just one has access to Miracle Dice, one doesn't. So it's kind of like how the Battle Sisters work in Imperial Agents, where they don't have Miracle Dice. They can spend a cherub for a reroll, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But now moving out of kill teams, let's talk actual 40K.
Well, actually, before we move out of Kill Team, the thing that I'm actually low-key most excited for is there's like specific Tyranid scatter terrain that's going to be in here as well. And like it is just little small scatter terrain, so like it's not big terrain pieces, things like that. But GW, do more faction specific terrain. Like, this stuff is cool. I want alien Tyranid tables and stuff like that rather than just, Codex Imperial Ruins. So please do more of this.
Right. Yeah, because they actually give you like spore chimneys and bits and pieces, things that people have been wanting for a while. And also, I would say Kill Team gets so much, like, their terrain rules and setups are so much cooler. Yeah. I've seen more and more criticism about L-shaped terrain in 40K and how tables are getting very samey. And I think that is a fair criticism to have, but I think we'll save it for another episode. Because that could be like the history of terrain. And like, I know anytime we do a history of, like, I've seen Spotify listeners, first of all, thank you for subscribing and listening. Secondly, I see you, I hear you. I know I saw a couple of comments on our episodes about vehicles in the history of vehicles in 40K, and it's like, oh look, it's the old gamer yells at clouds episode. And like, yeah, maybe, I mean, maybe a little bit, but it's kind of it was more meant to, like, it's not so okay. It was a little bit of bitching on my point. I will totally agree with that. There will be eventually the history of terrain in 40K, especially because it's taken them several passes to even get terrain functioning properly in 10th edition, and it's, again, discussion for another time. We'll table it for now, but yes, more creative terrain is better. Will these show up with rules in 40K? Probably not. We've already seen the Webway Gate get axed from the Eldari, and it got moved to Legend, so I would be surprised if we see more terrain pieces like fortifications coming. Fortifications and flyers are kind of more or less been decided to not be welcome in the game, and that's kind of okay, but having cool things to put on tables for scatter terrain and to decorate your tables is always good.
Yeah, because like this type of terrain I think works really well specifically for the Tyranids, because you can have your L-shaped, ruins table and then scatter in like the scatter terrain Tyranid pieces. And oh look, now it's an Imperial city that was, it's experiencing a Tyranid invasion. That's why there's spores left behind. Like, just little things like that to kind of shake up the table and make it more interesting are always appreciated.
Yes. All right, so now let's get into actual 40K discussion, and we're going to start with the discussion of the things that are coming the soonest, my guess, and that is the new codexes and units being released for the other 3 Chaos God-specific legions. So, starting off with World Eaters, you have a new actual, like, somewhat generic character. Yeah. The Slaughterbound.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I don't know that 8-Pound necessarily needed a specific leader, because they were one of the few units that could take pretty much any leader, other than like the Master of Executions could join them, but couldn't join them. But no, it's a cool looking model. I love the fluff background where they're like, hey, the 8-Bound like have these demons inserted inside them. This guy had a bloodthirster, and I'm like, that's interesting. It seems like it was a baby bloodthirster because he didn't get much bigger, but whatever. No, I think it's a cool idea. The frustration that I have is, and again, we don't have the codex, so maybe there's more stuff coming. As neat as it is to continue to lean into like the 8-Bound stuff, because I do think the 8-Bound are probably one of my favorite things in the codex right now. It's not something that I necessarily wanted or needed like initially. I was like, why did we get 8-Bound? I want like melee Terminators or, things like that. So I'm a little bit disappointed that this wasn't, if they're only going to get one new character, which again, we don't know for sure, that it wasn't something like a generic Lord or like a Butcher Surgeon, or some of these other things that had been kind of like speculated that we could be getting. But, for what it is, I like this. It's always good to make your 8-Pound better. If his rules are any good, I'm going to get 3. So, I mean, because 8-Bound are the best part of the best unit in the game. And if this guy makes them better, I'm going to get several to add. So, yeah, I don't hate it.
And then, where they do specify, you get You get 5 detachments, so you get 1 less than Emperor's Children, but you do at least have a Grotmus detachment, so you have 6 to play with. And they, again, specified Bloodletters, Bloodthirsters, like Chaos Demons for Khorne will be included in the Codex. We knew that from the announcement that we talked about last episode, that Chaos Demons are staying as an index. They are not getting a print Codex. And if it's like Emperor's Children, you'll be able to splash them in 1 detachment.
Yeah.
So
Khorne Demonkin maybe back?
Maybe. I mean,
we'll see. Yeah.
It's not unlikely.
I can dust off all of those old Khorne Demon models that I haven't used since 7th.
If it is in there, you're gonna.
Oh, absolutely.
And then meanwhile, we get to then they talk Death Guard. Death Guard does include the new Lord of Pox's model that they accidentally leaked and then revealed at LVO. And he's a decent looking, like, Plague Marine-ish style character. He's fine. Also 6 detachments in the Death Guard, so with the Grotmus one, that will get us to lucky number 7 for Nurgle. So,
and that makes sense. They're much more fleshed out than the other Legion books. They have more options. They have more different styles. So, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. And then we get to Thousand Sons, and I think Thousand Sons of the 3 is the most controversial for a couple of reasons. Like, first off, a new unit, and this is a unit that's been teased for a while. There has been speculation that there would be some sort of Thousand Sons robotic, like, automaton warrior for a while. And now we have seen it, the Sekitar robots. And the response from the fan base has been decidedly meh. I haven't seen much enthusiasm. A lot of it also comes down for the paint scheme that they used for these particular sample models, where they've got the blue and gold banding, but it's underneath a layer of very chipped ivory armor.
Which it's very Ossiarch Bone Reapers.
Yes.
And I don't think that's how I would have done it.
No. I've seen some people discuss, like, okay, so I photoshopped this in blue and gold, like made the core body blue, and I like it better, but I still don't see people going like, like when they released Emperor's Children, and people were like, yeah, the color scheme seems kind of muted, punch up this saturation on it. Nope, okay, there, that's it. It's like, the models were good, just the paint job could have been pushed a bit harder.
Yeah.
This one, it's like, okay, so let's push the paint job. I still don't like it, but it's better. It's an odd choice for a unit.
Ultimately, like, because they are automatons, like robot type things, they're not going to be very dynamic. Looking, when we talked about the servitors and they released those, or the pictures of those, they're servitors. Like, they're not going to be super dynamic. That's the whole point. They're robots. The problem that I have with this, the thing that I think is kind of in a little bit of conflict with Dean's guys, specifically for Thousand Sons, is Thousand Sons themselves are already like magical automata. So you're not getting a very dynamically posed army anyway. And like adding more like standing up straight, stiff robotic models doesn't add anything unique to the army from a visual perspective. Also, it's a little bit weird. Like, I don't know. I don't quite understand the background. There's probably some background on the Horus Heresy that I'm missing as to why they get like magic robots and other people don't. But I want to see the rules. I want to see what they actually do. It seems like just an odd choice. It's just an odd choice because the rest of the army is already kind of automata, like kind of static. I don't really know what this adds that's unique other than like maybe some heavy firepower. I don't know. Just, it seems weird. Seems a weird choice.
It is. And they, something that they don't show in the reveals on the website, but they did show in the in the video, was that there's going to be a trio of like launch boxes one for each of these armies, and the Sekatars are going to be in the Thousand Suns launch box, and that's going to be like the first place it's going to be available. And again, that led to a mighty cry of from across the 40K internet. Like I'm sure there are people who are like, okay, that's cool, yeah, I want to add those, but yeah, for the most part, I don't think there was nearly as much enthusiasm that I saw in chat for these particular launch boxes, because they're all like standard stuff plus and the one new model for each army. So and they did reveal more amulets of FOMO and limited edition codexes, which I think they said each one's only got 1,600 numbered copies available.
I gotta admit, they look pretty fucking sweet.
No, don't do it. Don't do it, Kevin.
I'm not doing it, but I gotta admit they do look pretty cool.
That's how they get you.
I'm just saying they do look really cool. I'm not doing it, but they do look pretty awesome.
Again, I will say unto our listeners, if you want, we will create a $200 tier for the Amulet of FOMO, and we'll put Kevin to work with his 3D printers making you stuff.
Yeah.
I am sorely tempted to add a $200 tier to the Patreon. I know we've joked about it, but I think I might actually do it and put you up for it.
I don't care about like the little like amulet thing, like the little like piece of that whatever, that doesn't impress me that much. But like when they showed like in the preview, like they had the books and they like opened it up, the slipcase and stuff like that, looks pretty damn good. I'm like, I'm not gonna do it because I'm not gonna spend what they think that's worth. But like as a nerd who loves books, it's a pretty freaking sweet book slip.
It is. I mean, it looks nice, but it's going to be scalped all to hell. B, it's super expensive. It's not worth it. But it's not worth it. Are they beautiful pieces of art? Yes, I will not deny that. Yeah. But yeah, I'm definitely not here for the special editions, but they are at least going to have them all out within the next few months. And they specify in the text reveal, Index Chaos Demons will have all the options. It'll be fully legal. As each codex is released, the index will be updated with the new data sheet. So like we saw with Demonettes getting updated to match the Emperor's Children one, any rules changes that we see for Khorne demons, Nurgle demons, Tzeentch demons will be reflected in Codex Chaos Demons. So kind of like how the Sanctifiers work, there'll be two different versions. They'll have slightly different rules because one will have Shadow of the Warp, one won't, but they will play nicely. And also, they did specify Karnak is going to be unlegended and brought back. So that's nice.
That never made any sense because it's a new model.
It's a very new model, yeah. Now, moving on, what are all those Chaos Legions going to be fighting against? We are here with a new Crusade book, which surprises me because we've had one per year, and now we have two. We're going to have two in comparatively rapid succession with Crusade Armageddon. Which I've already seen people complaining Steel Legion wear.
Maybe. Like, come on, guys. Maybe it'll happen.
But it looks primarily to be World Eaters versus Grey Knights for this one. At least that is what they are focusing on. It's what they are mentioning primarily in the story. It's what's featured on the cover. And looks like we get some new stuff. They talk about how it's a branching campaign with, again, 3 alliances, because that's how we do Crusades now. Thematic boons based on who won or lost the previous campaign phase. So rather than being a city map like in Nachman Gauntlet, we're getting a branching campaign style. But it also looks like it brings in at least one thing from the Nachman Gauntlet, and that is the Epic Hero Mighty Champions rule that we talked about, where it's like you can the game master can apply a bonus to properly matched Epic Heroes, and the two they showed, Nemesis Champions and Inspirational Champions, are identical to their Nachman Gauntlet versions. So that looks like it may just be a thing for Crusade, which again is nice, because if you're going to have a campaign that is featuring particular characters, like, hey, this is about Angron attacking Armageddon, and they feature Grimaldus because apparently the Black Templars are going back to Armageddon to help fight back. So it's like, hey, if you have, Grimaldus, he's an inspirational champion. So we've said in our Nachman Gauntlet review that, Epic Heroes were always kind of excluded from Crusade because it was like you didn't get any real benefits to taking them. Now you do. So it's kind of nice to be able to include them and not have them feel completely left out. Also, nice bit of accessibility on the page where they have like the images of like Nemesis Champion and Inspirational Champion, and underneath a little text reader button. So you can actually just get the text that's in the image.
Oh, nice. I didn't even notice that. That's cool.
It's a nice little touch. I appreciate that. They mentioned Hellscape rules that let you play on battlefields riven with warp energy that will give new powers, but might also have a risk reward mechanic, which we're all here for risk reward mechanics. We love them with surgical deep strikes. I'm curious to see what they do with Hellscapes. And then they mentioned that, well, hey, if the World Eaters are here and they're getting an updated codex, and we knew this was coming, Grey Knights also get an updated codex.
Woohoo! Woohoo!
Let's see. I don't think they mentioned how many detachments you're going to get in this one, but they did mention you get an updated Nemesis Dread Knight.
Yeah.
At least with an add-on sprue.
Yeah. I mean, it maybe is new, but yeah, it mostly does just kind of look like an add-on sprue.
Right.
Because it is still very much the same, like, kind of size and the same old boring pose.
Yep.
That the Nemesis Grey Knight has had before, which is a little disappointing, but having like shiny new bits to, have your Grandmaster look look different is good. The mace and the flail look pretty cool.
Do look pretty cool.
Yeah. Grey Knights are another one of those armies, so it's like, okay, how many kits do you have? You have like 3. You can make anything you want as long as you use these 3 kits.
Yep.
And more dynamic posing for a Nemesis Dread Knight. Like, if they're going to update the kit, like, really just like go for it instead of the static. And people still hate the Baby Bjorn. Like, no one's a big fan.
Yeah, I've always just kind of thought, it's fine, but for the one that I have built, and I have another one that I haven't built yet, I was going to make that one, like, convert it and add, shiny bits onto it to make it the Grandmaster version, but I may just wait for this kit and put it together as a regular Nemesis Dread Knight. But I took off the shoulder straps off of, like, the guy in the front, and I'm taking off the top winged hinge things that stick up, and doing those 2 things, I feel make the model look better.
Yeah, I could see that.
But yeah, looking at the current kit and the new one, it is the exact same pose. I do like the addition of being able to have the Grey Knights like book on top. It looks like there's an iron halo now. The chest piece looks to have like little launchers on them.
Yeah.
Grenade or rocket launchers. Obviously, we have some new weapon options. Yeah, otherwise, everything else, same tilt shields, same flails. More
detail. There is like a little more detail, I think, on the like the knee pads.
Yeah.
They've polished the turd. Just to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
Because they did have like a book with the sword through it that you could put on top of it. before,
they
but
did.
this one looks different. This one looks like proportionally like different, like the book looks bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is like a different piece, but like they had one before, but it was like a little bitty and it stuck up really tall. Like there was part of the sword at the bottom so the book kind of hung there a little bit. But yeah, that one looks better.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's that. Sorry, Grey Knights. That's what you get. That is absolutely what you get. I'm sorry. We knew they were one of the next codexes after all the chaos stuff got updated. So, moving on, the next thing I want to talk about is not I'm going to save the last set of model releases for the end, but the next thing I want to talk about, and this is going to have some interesting impacts, is that we are officially getting a new mission deck for 2025-2026. Pariah Nexus is leaving the field, and instead of getting one tied to a particular location, like we had Leviathan, or like a particular campaign, like we had Leviathan, we had Pariah Nexus, we have chapter approved. It's just the season deck. That is what it is. But there's some interesting things going on, and I believe in giving credit where credit is due. Thank you for supporting 1,000 Point Games with their own maps. And their own cards, because apparently everyone will have its own version of 1,000 point, 2,000 point. I do really appreciate that, and they even show hey, Dawn of War, it's the same size board, but in Dawn of War for 1,000 point, the objectives are closer in towards the middle, as opposed to the 2,000 point where they so for example, on the 1,000 point, they are the objectives, they show the Dawn of War map, so it's long table edge facing each other, the classic 40k deployment. In 1,000 point, your objectives are 8 inches from the table edge in your deployment zone, and then the ones in no man's land are in the center, and then 14 inches from the sides. Whereas in the 2,000 point game, they're only 6 inches forward and 10 inches from the side. So the idea is you're going to be more spread out. You're going to have more units in a 2,000 point game. You've got more room to kind of you've got to spread out more to get all the objectives. So, okay, I dig that. I'm really here for it. The next thing that's interesting is the asymmetric war missions. And we know very little about that, except that we have a map, and the map is very different. But they mentioned uneven deployment zones, differing primary objectives. So your opponent will be trying to do one thing while you're trying to do something completely different. And I'm here for that. I would like to, from a narrative standpoint, I love asymmetric missions.
Absolutely.
And so seeing something like this for tournament play, for match play, we'll see if anyone actually uses it. But I love having this as an option. We don't know a lot about it, what makes it fully asymmetric, as opposed to the Incursion and Strike Force. Does it mean not only are you doing different things, but do you have different army sizes? We don't know yet. Secret missions are out. Again, so gambits were an absolute failure. Let's in the first iteration of this, gambits were bad. Secret missions were actually not bad. I actually liked having secret missions. I've used them on a number of occasions, and I don't think I think I maybe have won with a secret mission once, but you got to be really close. But instead, we get challenger cards, which are a catch-up mechanism. We talked about when we talked about the aspects of war from White Dwarf last episode. We talked about how it has a catch-up mechanism, if you're behind on victory points, you can get extra CP. This does something very different, but also the point value that they give for how far behind you are tells me we're changing how things are scored. because they mentioned that the new Challenger cards are options for players who are trailing by 6 victory points or more at the start of a battle round. And that seems a very oddly specific number when everything up until now has been in increments of 5.
Mm-hmm.
Not entirely. I mean, there are missions where it's like increments of 3, but everything's in like 5 and 10 point increments. And I'm wondering if we're going to see a Nachmund Gauntlet style reconfiguration of scoring so that we're scoring single points the way like Age of Sigmar does, rather than in blocks of like 5 or 10.
Potentially. The other reason why they could pick 6 is because that means that you were at least 2 blocks behind if they're doing 5 points. So I could see it either way.
Yeah,
And so,
another way of saying more than 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. So, but the Challenger missions, basically, if you choose, like at the start of a battle round, if you're far behind, you take a Challenger card, and it has either a stratagem or an additional mission you can perform to score points, but you can't use both. And the other thing is all the stratagems are free. So the 2 examples they have, one of them is the combination of Force a Breach or Secure Extraction Zone. Force a Breach is the stratagem. Use it in your movement phase when 1 unit from your army has not been selected to move yet, and until the end of the turn, when they make a normal or advanced move, they can move through models and terrain features. So you can like just push your models through. You can't be screened out. Or you can choose the Challenger mission of Secure Extraction Zone in your shooting phase. It completes immediately, and you just have to have 1 unit from your army that is not within your deployment zone and is wholly within 9 inches or more of your battlefield edges. So if you can get a model outside your deployment zone near a battlefield edge, you immediately score 3 points, which is not a bad catch-up mechanism. Like, hey, if you can, like, it might pull you out of zone. It might give you something that you were going to do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hate it. I think that's cool. The other one they show is Renewed Focus. When in your shooting or fight phase, again, for 0 CP, 1 unit from your army has not yet been selected to shoot or fight until the end of the phase. Each time they make an attack, reroll hits and wounds of 1, which is a very powerful ability for free. Or the Challenger mission is Establish Comms. Again, in your shooting phase, select a unit from your army that is more than 15 inches away from all other units from your army. It completes immediately, and if completed, you score 3 victory points. So do you need the extra killy power to push ahead? Because like that's what you have. Like you have to kill this unit to be able to pull off your objectives. Or I've got a guy who's kind of like way out of position, but I can use it to score 3 points. Honestly, like I like secret missions, but the idea of having a catch-up mechanism rather than kind of the Hail Mary, let's see if I can pull this off, I think feels better, because it's also something, unless these are kept hidden, it's something that like your opponent can see. But this is also all stuff that's happening on your turn. So if you can pull this out, like it's effectively, if you've got stuff in the right position, at least with these 2, that's 3 free victory points, or you have a strat that your opponent knows that you have and can use. So I think it's interesting. Then they also mention the mission deck comes with like the punch out objectives that we see in every deck, or you'll be able to buy a set of like flexible big objective markers, like the big like 7-inch wide objective markers that like that we usually get with neoprene. Will they be a good price? Who can tell? In the past, they have like the faction specific ones that they usually sell for what, like about $30 or so. They're like the neoprene ones,
something like that. Yeah,
I imagine these would probably be in the $20 range because they're not faction specific and they're probably not full neoprene.
I think they did an objective set with the last one as well. And I think they were the same neoprene. They just had different screen printing on them. It is not faction specific. So I would suspect these are going to be the same price as the faction specific ones.
Okay. But yeah, I am very intrigued by this deck, but also knowing this is coming, and we kind of figured it, they're doing yearly seasons. I'm we just ran our first official tournament at our local game store. I just ran my first tournament that I've run in years, and everything went well. But we're already looking at like, okay, so we need to get some more. We probably want to get some additional terrain so we can expand to a couple more tables. We'll need to get some more mats because we have 48 by 72 mats, but we need to get 44 by 60 mats because that's the size everything is now, and taping everything off is a little bit of a pain. But now I'm like, let's hold off on picking anything up until this deck comes out and they release a new tournament companion, and they released what the new tournament layouts or the new terrain layouts are going to be. Again, an episode and discussion for another day, but it's like we kind of want to hold off and not commit to purchases until we know what we'll be getting into with these.
Yeah.
Also, for the love of all that is good in the universe, print enough of these GW. Because Pariah and Nexus decks, like I know people who haven't gotten theirs until recently. Like they did not print enough of these at launch, and Leviathan had the same problem.
I don't know if that problem's going away. That problem's probably just gonna get worse.
Yeah.
Digital rules distribution GW.
Well, and thankfully Goonhammer will have an updated tabletop battles app, which will have all the information in it, and that will be what a lot of people lean on. And it's a very useful app. If you are not using it, I highly recommend it. We used it for the tournament, obviously, but we also used it for our narrative games because you can just say custom battle and you don't have to put in any of the scoring rules. Again, we will now, because you are going to have things that score you like things in elements of 3 victory points. I would like to point out that in the custom missions section of the Tabletop Battles app, that they don't do... I think I mentioned this in Ottman Gauntlet. Everything is in 5 and 10 point increments. But if you're running like match play rules, that they've got more flexibility. If this is in fact changing things to being like fewer points, then they'll need to be able to have like being able to do points in increments of like 1 or 3, but we'll see what happens with that. But I am most excited for the asymmetric missions because I really want to see what they're doing with those, and I'm sure we'll get more information as the release gets closer. And then finally, the last reveal of the video and of the of this episode is we're getting a new Space Wolf launch. Woo-hoo. And Blood Angels players everywhere cried out in absolute frustration because the Space Wolves are getting a much better set of revamps than Blood Angels did. I personally don't mind the new Sanguinary Guard models, but these look a lot more Space Wolfy and they look consistent with the older Space Wolf designs than the Blood Angels units did. We're getting new Blood Claws. Basically, it looks like they're mostly taking Assault Intercessors because I recognize some of the poses, but I think they've got a better set of conversion bits that they're using. Grey Hunters, so I'm assuming an Assault or just a regular Intercessor kit with new bits. But again, the conversion bits look really, really nice. The Wolfguard Head Takers, who come with Fenrisian Wolves, which they did specify in the video, they split off and become their own unit. Like you play them as 2 separate units, but some really, really nice bits. They've got, continuing with the Space Wolves using round storm shields and plenty of fur trim, runes, fangy faces, helmets with a slight Viking twist. Like if you look at the head takers, they've got kind of like the Viking or Saxon armor nose guard, over the faceplate, and just really slick looking models. The Wolfguard Battle Leader, who is a Space Wolf lieutenant. We get a new Space Wolves get their own Space Wolf lieutenant.
Heck yeah!
But he looks badass, so I'll allow it.
It is amazing how like just a simple design choice, like, hey, we're gonna do round shields for these guys instead of the kind of square or like kite
Cruciform,
shield. Yeah, like just gives them a different feel. And it's so cool. It's like, this definitely invokes specifically what you're trying to invoke.
Yeah,
I'm here for it.
absolutely. And the Wolfguard Battle Leader, they give you plenty of options. Looks like we've got Power Sword, Thunder Hammer. I'm assuming they'll probably have a Power Axe available, like all the head takers do. Several different head options. Do you want like flowing blonde hair? Do you want a top knot that's braided? Do you want somebody wearing a helmet? You've got all those options. And then the Wolf Priest, and they said this is like the first time they've actually ever had a specific Wolf Priest model. Like it's always been kind of like a generic chaplain or maybe a conversion bit to throw onto a chaplain, but this is the first dedicated Wolf Priest model. And not gonna lie, looks pretty awesome.
The old man head with like the bald head and the long beard, that head looks amazing.
That looks fantastic.
Just perfect for that model.
And all this will be included. Yeah, there's a launch box that's basically going to have one of each of these units. A unit of Blood Claws, a unit of Grey Hunters, a unit of the Head Takers, all with their own wolves, the Battle Leader, and the Wolf Priest. That is a fantastic launch box for Space Wolves.
Yeah.
We will get Dennis's opinion on these when they drop. I know he's still primarily in Votann land, but this is another one of his armies, and I'm betting he likes them.
The models all look cool.
They do all look cool. And then to end everything, we get an updated roadmap. Our now is Thousand Suns, World Eaters, Death Guard, and Space Wolves. So we know we're getting Space Wolves real soon. It's only appropriate that they paired them up with the Thousand Suns. So I'm wondering if they're going to be released at the same time or very close to it. And then we know coming next, Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights. There have been a couple of rumor engine reveals that might be coming from Chaos Knights, but not sure yet. But Chaos Knights, Imperial Knights, Black Templars we knew was coming. Grey Knights, we have now seen the polished turd that is the new Nemesis Dread Knight. But those codexes are coming next. And then on the horizon, we still have our salamanders on the horizon. We are assuming that they are salamanders because there's two other things that have been added. One is very definitely Imperial Fists, which implies that all the first founding chapters are going to start getting their own supplements rather than just being locked solely in the Space Marine Codex. Because, hey, if as a Blood Angels player I have to pay an extra $30 for having my chapter rules, the rest of you should have to as well, and I think that's only fair.
See, I'm gonna take a slightly different stance on this. I think it's Crimson Fists.
Por qué no los dos?
Sorry, go on.
And then finally, the other one that was added, which depending on what order they release these in, might be before the Imperial/Crimson Fists. That sure looks like Votann Void Armor.
It absolutely is. Yeah. And that's another faction that needs more stuff. So I'm excited.
I fear Dennis's wallet will never recover from this. Because he might hold off on the Space Wolves if he knows Votann are coming, though. I have a feeling. Because Votann is definitely his thing that he's all, like, a couple of years ago it was Sisters. This year, the last year or so, it's really been Votann. And I don't see that changing now that we know Votann are on the horizon.
Right.
So I'm guessing I would not be surprised if we see all the Chaos Legions by summer. Like by the time Midwest Conquest is out, we might have like Thousand Suns, Death Guard, and World Eaters. That would be my guess. If they're under now, that's usually means they're coming really, really soon.
Yeah.
Chaos Knights, Imperial Knights, Black Templars, Grey Knights. Those will be our summer going into fall releases, which Black Templars and Grey Knights will probably be released around the same time as Armageddon. So
That would make
and
sense.
that would work.
Yeah.
That would give us about 6 months after Knockman. That gives time for that Crusade play to kind of have worked through, run its course. So yeah, if they drop that around like August or so, like August, even early September, which would mean our late fall going into winter reveals would be Salamanders, Voton, and then maybe Imperial Fists rounding out the year. And then they did have like the thing where they show a silhouette, and again, unclear and extremely vague. But yeah, honestly, for 40K, a lot coming. I some of it's a little bit of a mixed bag. Some of the chaos stuff is more exciting than others. The Grey Knights one is maybe not as exciting as it could be, but the Codex might be really, really solid, and the new Nemesis Dread Knight options. It's like it all comes down to like, are the detachments going to be fun to play, and are the unit rules going to be solid? And Grey Knights have done decently well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that. And then, depending on what they do with like Imperial Knights, being able to splash Knights into other armies could, patch up a lot of, any holes that other armies have. But new mission deck is, I'm glad to see some good, interesting details on that. And it's going to be a solid year. We'll see how affordable it all is. We'll see how this whole international trade thing shakes out. But if it doesn't absolutely tank everything, then there's some really cool stuff coming. And yet, I think the two things I am personally most excited for are Cathay and the new mission deck. Just for the stuff that I'm likely to play.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm always excited to see a new World Eaters Codex and like what options and what changes are made there. But I think the star of the show is the Cathay stuff. Like,
Absolutely.
Like just across the board, I think that's going to generate a lot of excitement and hopefully more interest in the old world.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm excited for the Grey Knight Codex. Obviously, like I think that's going to be cool. I like the look of the new Ravners in the Kill Team box, and that scattered terrain looks cool. I expect that'll probably be something that I try and pick up.
Yeah, I imagine. All right, well, I think that wraps up our look at the Adepticon previews. GW did not disappoint. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. We'll see how soon some of those now things are going to be revealed. And we still, and I say how soon because we're still waiting on announcement of when is the rest of Emperor's Children coming out, because we've had our launch box. It's been about a month or so. So hopefully hopefully soon we'll be seeing news on when that is going to be hitting. And Editor Rob here, they did announce it right after we finished recording. So until then, from all of us here at Preferred Enemies, I'm your host, Rob.
Kevin?
And Richard.
Good night, good gaming, and God, anyone want to buy my 40K stuff? I gotta buy Cathay.